What's up, Lions of Liberty fans? You can now support this show on Patreon and get exclusive access to bonus audio and video content, including Conspiracy Corner, Degenerate Gamblers, bonus segments with guests, and so much more. Head on over to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty.
Welcome to Electric Libertyland, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
All right, welcome to Electric Libertyland, episode number 82, everybody. That means you can find all of the show notes for today's episode at lionsofliberty.com/ELL82. Now, I am your host, Brian McWilliams, and you may be able to tell I'm a little under the weather today. Although on the bright side, being sick and having this crazy voice right now gives me a great opportunity to do the Optimus Prime voice from Transformers. I don't know if you know, I don't know how he did without it. My guess is laughing. I'll choose to say, but so tell me this isn't spot on. Welcome, Transformers. Now I'm fucking laughing. I can't do it. But seriously, it's like, this is Optimus Prime. He had that like weird guttural shit. Anyway, it's Eric July is my guest today. So welcome to the show, Eric, from Backwordz, of course. Awesome to have you on.
Hey, man, it's good to be, back. I'm obviously a huge fan. So it's good to be back. It's good to be back, man. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, like I said, I was talking to Eric earlier. I'm just so glad I have a guest today, and especially one as verbose and as talented at spreading the ideas of liberty as Eric is. So, just kicking things off, you and I finally got to meet face to face at Porcfest. We were both there, and you guys performed, you and Backwordz. And, it was just before that, though. It was my first time seeing you play live, so that was really cool. But before that, I caught your speech, and you were one of the keynote speakers at the event. And so, just at the top of the show, I wanted to see if you could give people a little bit of a sample of that speech. Specifically, I just was so fascinated by your evolution into becoming a libertarian, because I had no idea that you were a blood. I had no idea, any of that. I was blown away from, going from telling people, you're talking about how you'd literally like fighting was like a pastime to becoming like a non-aggression principle libertarian. I mean, it's quite the swing. So,
most definitely.
Tell us about that, because it's awesome. And then of course about Backwordz and the evolution of that band as well.
Right. Well, I mean, I wanted to use that speech, and it's funny. I went in that speech with a bunch of notes, and I ditched them. You can probably, if there's any sort of video footage, I went up there on my little iPad and I ditched that speech almost immediately. And I've tended definitely lately to do that. But the speech in itself was something obviously really important, because I, as a libertarian, have, I catch myself sort of doing this, in which I take a step back. And as far as from a marketing standpoint, and from a person that's trying to spread these ideas of liberty, I've had to take a step back. And I do this every now and then, and you have to remind yourself, because it's easy when you got the ideas on your side. You feel like you look at libertarianism as this sort of enlightenment. So you got it. Once you become a libertarian, you're already at the end of the road. So I have to remind myself that everybody isn't there. And I also have to, in doing that, remember where I came from. And I wanted to use that speech as an opportunity to talk about libertarianism as it pertains to marketing and culture. And doing that, obviously, I talked about my own sort of evolution and being a person that was, like you had mentioned, gangbanging, and like being a person that went around fighting everybody all the time, and to get where I'm at right now, and how it was sort of this process. It was this process of me going from one side to the other, and just really just and it took a minute, and I have to sort of catch myself and remember, all right, well, I have to implement that in my marketing, because that's important, right? Because not everybody's going to get it, but there's ways for people to get it. And there's a communication barrier that was sort of broken down by way of like the guys that I mentioned in the speech was Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams. And everybody seems to have this sort of clicking point and somebody that they can generally refer to that helped them get to that sort of enlightenment period. And I related with those guys from a cultural standpoint, and that's why I listened to them in the first place. I wouldn't even give them the time of day had I not related to them from a cultural standpoint. So that was what the gist of the speech was, to let people understand, like, everybody has this sort of they're part of a subculture that they belong to. So if you're going to if your aspirations are to at least market liberty, then you really can't ignore, and you have to utilize really that sort of subculture as your vehicle, so to speak, to really get that message out, because you break that communicative ice. That was the term that I kept using, and that that otherwise, again, that's what makes people want to listen to you, that, you sort of breaking down that wall. And what better way to do that than to have some sort of subculture that you both either enjoy or you relate to, that otherwise, like I say, maybe somebody on the outside of that culture, otherwise, they're not going to be able to sort of target that person like you can. So that's the gist of his speech, was talking about that, because I think libertarians lose their way and sort of ignore quite often culture and the importance that it plays on human beings and their human affairs.
Well, it's like, we're talking about, like, people, you get this, libertarians get that moment where, like, all right, now I'm woke, for lack of a better term, where they're like, you're enlightened, I think is the term used. And it's like libertarians find enlightenment, but what I think happens so often is that a libertarian will find enlightenment, but then races out before they've really become Buddha. They think they're enlightened, so they run out and they try to get all these ideas out. When they're half-baked, they can't back them up, they don't explain them well enough, and they can't find a good way to counter a lot of the arguments that come their way. So they end up actually fighting against their own cause by virtue of their excitement,
Right. No, that's the perfect way to put it. I mean, because you reach that point, you're like, oh, I got it. And you don't really have a grasp of it. And this is the thing, man, that you have to understand. If you are somebody that is at the very least trying to, you have that's your aspiration. That's what you're trying to do. You want to spread liberty. You want to work towards a freer society. You got to have that sort of realization that, as far as if you're going to frame your argument in some sort of way, for one, you got to understand it. But two, a lot of what, that relationship that you have with an individual is really going to determine if that person is going to even give you the time of day. Yep. And that's so important. And we talked about that in the speech, and how there's just certain individuals that would touch people that I will never be able to get towards. And I think people look at, for whatever reason, libertarians have this sort of one size fits all, that everybody thinks that they have the way to market. I get people that tell me, oh, well, you're too this or you're too that, and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, it's working for me, and you really can't deny that. It's working for me. Now, granted, your approach my approach may not work for maybe the people that you're trying to target, but that's okay. That's my thing, is that I'm willing to admit that that's fine. Like, I've came to terms with the fact that there's just certain people, because of my approach alone, just because of who I am, I'm not going to be able to maybe get to them, but there's somebody else that can, you know what I mean? So let them handle that.
Unapologetic way. Like reading your Twitter feed is like, it is just purely unapologetic, like libertarian, like, fuck you. This is what I do. This is what I believe. I'm not backing off of it. And that is, it's incredibly attractive. And now, admittedly, some people aren't going to fall into that. Some people are going to be turned off by like a more abrasive, just no holds barred approach. But the other people, like you're saying, are going to be drawn to that. I mean, Ron Paul, man, he didn't back down. A lot of people like that about him. They're like, look, this is what he believes. He's not going to back up his principles. And that's what's so impressive. And I mean, you are epic on Twitter. You are a true warrior. Like, I wish I had the same tenacity you do to battle people on Twitter. I'll go like a few replies and I'm like, out, like I'm done. I can't do it. But you're fighting the good fight out there.
I got to, man. Somebody has to do it, man. Definitely somebody with a blue check mark, right? I mean, because I feel like every time I open my feed, man, there's somebody with a blue check mark saying some nonsense, and it often goes unchallenged, or at least more so unchallenged by someone that at least knows what they're talking about. Because I'm really huge on making sure if I fix my mouth or tweet or words, articles to say something, I thoroughly understand what it is. You notice I stay in my lane. I stay I'm always talking about economics and some of the social issues and stuff, but I stay in that lane. I don't deviate from that. There's stuff that you rarely see me talk about for example, let's say like drugs and stuff like that, because I don't do it. I don't do drugs. I oppose I can recognize why something like the drug war is bad, but you won't see me having a feed, talking about that, because that's not anything that, for one, I'm not passionate about that. I haven't done a whole lot of and I don't engage in the usage either, especially. So I don't have a strong opinion about that, but I stay in my lane, and I see people, on Twitter always talking about it, and it just goes seemingly unchallenged by someone that is at least somewhat understanding what they're talking about. So yeah, man, that's and it's funny how I've gotten so many people, that have said, "Hey, man, I found out about you through that." Yeah. You know what I mean? You were going back and forth with Talib Kweli, or something like that, So, and that's how I found out about you. And so, like I say, it's working, man. Just being that sort of unapologetic,
so many times
that sort of
too,
approach.
Like you do know, like you said, you're staying in your lane, but such a depth of knowledge in that base that you can expose people so blatantly. But what's so frustrating though is when you get somebody, you can expose their ignorance, you expose their ideas are being completely wrong in every manner, but yet their fans won't agree. They won't agree. It's like it's just trying to bang your head against a brick wall so often.
Oh man! And at some point, you gotta cut your losses, man.
Yeah,
you gotta cut your losses.
Exactly.
You gotta cut your losses, dude. Like I say, my thing. That's when you'll notice on my Twitter, like people say that like I say, I'm aggressive and stuff like that. I don't mind using shame as a tactic, because it was sort of what got me there. I talk about this all the time, how I was losing a lot of arguments
right.
Before I even wanted.
That's a great story. Can you tell just that little tip? Because that was a really funny part of the speech.
Back in 08, 07 and 08, I was Obama supporter. Campaigning for him, and I was out there in the University of Memphis arguing with collegiate Republicans, collegiate, Greens and stuff like that. And I was losing a lot of arguments, and you find out that I didn't really know a lot of what I was talking about, as a lot of people didn't. It was like, all right, Barack Obama, black president, potentially black president. You got to support him.
Like, so many people just fed those talking points that they just buy and hook
all your life, dude.
And then
all your life,
yeah.
It was from the get go. I was just sort of, it was obvious he had a D next to his name, but he also was black. It was a no brainer for me. Yeah. But you're losing all those arguments, and it's like, dang, man. I was like, all right, man, I don't want to lose. Really, I'm tired of being made to look like an idiot because I can't stand on my feet in these sort of arguments that I'm having with people on this campus. And that's when I wanted to get out there and learn more about like economics and finding around the likes. But that incentive to do that came from me being made to be an idiot, right? And this is why I say, I'll go first couple of tweets or something like that. I'm right there with you. I keep it cordial. The minute you say I'm not going to be cordial with you, I'll take it right there with you. I'll take it right there with you. Like, no hesitation. I'll go right there with you. And we just going to take it there. That's fine with me. Like, I'm not, and this is what I'm talking about with libertarians having to cut their losses, because I get these sort of moderate types that think that, all right, well, reason, because the libertarians, and I talked about this in the speech, I talked about the exact point, how libertarians realize that they have the ideas on their side. They think that's just enough. Like, you just have no, bro, like that's not enough. When you have people that are so emotionally invested in some of these talking points and some of these narratives, and they have been fed that stuff from a cultural standpoint for like generations, like intellect and ideas alone it's just not going to get it done. You know what I mean? It's not going to get it done with those, at least with those types. There are those that, they're very like, all right, fact-based, reason-based. And with those, yes, that's going to work. But a lot of people, I'd argue most people don't operate like that, definitely coming from the left, which most of their arguments are purely, they'll admit it too. This is purely emotional.
Yeah, it's about the way they feel, not the way not the way the facts lay. And that's right. I talk to people about this, and I'd given a speech with Mark, and I both gave speeches actually at the LA Libertarian Convention. And that was the focus of my speech too, was trying to bridge that gap and how do you best communicate liberty. And that was what I keyed on, is you're not going to be able to beat these people over the head with stats. And it doesn't matter if we're right. You got to find the way that connects with them and the feels and say, look, we both want the same goal. Let's figure out what that goal is. Let me show you why our way is a better way to achieve it and address your feelings. Like, I'm helping what you want to help, but I'm trying to help you do it in a different and more efficient way that's not going to squash so many people's liberties.
Right. No, that's the perfect way to put it. Like you said, I mean, facts alone is just not gonna work with these people that are so emotionally invested in their positions, and they have been fed this stuff for generations, like literal generations. Their mamas thought this way, their parents and their mamas thought this sort of way. So you have to sort of hit that from an emotional standpoint to even get them thinking logically. Even though, again, we admit it, like, we got the ideas on our side. We're right. I mean, I said this in the speech. Like, we're at Porcfest, we're right. Like, we're usually right on the whatever topic that we're talking on, but you can be right all you want, you know what I mean? But if you're arguing with somebody, or at least that person is emotionally invested, and you completely, remove that portion from your argument or from your position, and when you're trying to persuade them, it's just not generally gonna work.
No, exactly. They'll block it off. They'll either say, "All right, well, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about," and they won't go look it up on their own. Not everybody's like you, where they're actually going to go and say, "I might have lost that argument. Let me look into it and make sure I know what I'm talking about." They're just going to be like, "You're wrong. Fuck that asshole. He's a racist, or he's a bigot, or he hates, whatever excuse they need to put up that wall." And then they're just going to walk away and continue about their life. Because it's just that putting that enclosure around the ego to make sure that there's nothing that's going to attack that ego and make them wrong. Because I mean, that's what I found more often than not, is it's just that people really don't actually care about the outcome. They just don't want to be wrong. Like, there was some poll that was done, and they polled Democrats, and they were like, would you rather have the economy tank or the economy do well? And they said, I'd rather have it tank. And the reason was solely because they didn't want Trump to be right. And it's like, that just shows you where people's minds are at.
It's insane, but that's like you just said, that shows you exactly where these people are at. It's about, like, again, it's purely emotional. It's not about facts. It's not even a lot of that stuff is just this sort of moral kind of grandstand sort of thing. And like you said, like they've been jumping down people's throats. They've been taking a lot of these positions publicly. So they want to be right. They almost have to be right. When they said, all right, Trump was going to destroy the entire country, it was the doomsday scenario had he won president. So they're still latching on that, because if they risk being wrong. So most definitely, they'd rather make it a bad situation, or wish for a bad situation for everybody in this geographical area, just for the sake of being right. And that just lets you know where these people are at.
Well, it's kind of interesting now, because of the virtue signaling is something that drives me insane, and you see it so often from both sides now, because it was a tactic more adopted by the left, and then there was also the cultural evisceration of anybody who dared step out of that lockstep line that they created, and now we're seeing. I want to talk to you about this James Gunn issue, which I know you're a big comic book guy. I don't know if you ever read Guardians of the Galaxy. That wasn't one I read. I was like more X-Men kind of guy, but the movies, in my opinion, are like the best movies that Marvel's made. They're funny. The characters likable. They're good films. Really remarkably well-made films. And then we find out that James Gunn, who makes a lot of Twitter jokes, he probably got 10,000 tweets. I don't know. And in those tweets, there are 4 tweets that mention pedophilia or rape in the context of a joke. And now he has been turned upon and got fired. And who knows if he'll ever work again. So right. What do you think about this James Gunn situation, about the left eating itself? And then also, do you condone these kind of attacks? Would you condone a libertarian taking this position? Obviously, I don't think we would, but
right.
What are your thoughts on
right. No, I mean, it's one of those things where I take enjoyment out of the left eating itself. Yeah, I've been, if you watch my videos and stuff like that, I've talked about.
Give a shout out to your page, by the way.
Most definitely. A young Ripper 5'9" over at YouTube. I'm doing a lot of videos these days, since Backwordz is back in the sort of writing process, since we just got off the road. So I talk about comics and stuff like that. You can see the viewers might not, but with all of the stuff on my wall, I got this Avengers poster. I got all of this stuff over there, and there's portions of my room that you can't even see, and it's just something that I've loved since I was a kid. I'm very emotionally and invested in some of this stuff. But I do enjoy the fact that the left starts eating, really eating itself. However, it's that thin line, right? It's that thin line of, all right, well, if they will do that to them, think about what the hell they'll do to somebody else, like that's not on their side or not in their clique or not in their posse. Is this something that we want to condone? Like, and my thing is that I don't think what happens is that we get these sort of polarized lines of thinking, right? When something like this comes about, it's like people act like you can't recognize either something for one is as a joke or recognize something in context without being in opposition to something like rape or something like pedophilia. Like, you can be in opposition to all of that stuff, all while saying, like, all right, man, maybe we took it a little too far. Maybe we're overreacting or something like that. I don't think it's the sort of,
it's the nature of art. I mean, you're an artist, you try shit. I'm sure there's a lot of songs you put together and you go, man, that sucked dong. Enough of that. Get rid of that song. Like, we tried it. It was terrible. We're moving on. And especially with comedy, like I do stand up, you're constantly trying jokes and you don't know if they're going to work until you throw them out there and you see, and people forget that, I mean, shit changes over time, the standards for what's okay and what's not okay change
most definitely
drastically. And so we're going to look at a guy's tweets from, I think they're from 2009, almost 10 years ago now. And now we're going to say, well, 10 years ago, there were a hell of a lot of rape jokes being made and they were totally acceptable. So these conservative bloggers are going to go and dig through the tweets, and then Disney now, because of the climate that the left has created, fires this dude. It's like, give me a fucking break, man.
Yeah, it's insane because, like I said, my thing is I think people don't take into consideration at least the person's intentions as they're looking at everything at a surface level for whatever reason. Like, again, like nothing's ever in context anymore. It's always at the surface level. I mean, because I think about but that's the thing. I mean, I'm a little different from a lot of these guys because I wear all of my shortcomings on my sleeves. You know what I mean? As far as, so you can go find stuff. Probably
Dallas Cowboys fan.
Yeah. yeah. Like I wear all this stuff on my sleeve. You know what I mean? So you're gonna find some old stuff, but I already aired all of my business out there. So there ain't nothing that you can say about what I did that I won't be like, yeah, I did that back in 2008. I mean, what's good? What's up? You know what I mean? But I get it, with the situation that he's in, and being a director, and for this person,
right?
Yeah. Like it's a situation, but like I said, it's people don't look at it, in context. They don't even look at it like how that person is now, versus maybe how they were. So my thing is, like, even if that person was on some, like, because we're seeing that happen with Josh Hader, the pitcher for the Brewers.
Yeah.
And
tweets that said
he had some tweets, the N-word stuff, like back when he was a teenager or something like that. You know what I mean? And a lot of those are rap quotes for one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Some of those are rap quotes, but all of his teammates were like, well, we didn't even suspect. And the only reason this happened was because of how he performed in this All-Star game. Yeah. So people are looking for dirt. Yeah, you know exactly. What I mean? And it's a similar situation with Gunn. Like, so people are like, all right, well, I got to go look for this dirt because I want to demonize this person. Screw how he is right now. Screw even, and more so with Gunn's case, screw the context of what he was saying when he said it. And screw all of that. He just said it, and it looks bad at surface level, so we can demonize this person. It's
basically like when you think about the way that they do movie trailers, where they take out that little clip, and it's always like the greatest film of the summer. But meanwhile, the context of that clip. Half the time, it's like the greatest film of the summer that you should never see, and is a huge piece of shit. They take those 5 words, though, they make it sound good. And what's happening now is they do the opposite. They're like, all right, what's the worst? What are the 5 words we can take that paint somebody in the worst possible light? And I mean, Christ, there's things I know I've said, I'm sure you've said, I'm sure any number of people have said, where you take them out of context. I mean, people could cut up this podcast, or I'm sure any of the shows on YouTube.
I've had that happen to me, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, they do like the, what they call it, the fucking mixtape version of putting your shit together so it makes you look terrible.
Yeah, like I've had that happen to me where people have taken, like, put it on memes of me saying something completely out of context or something, like out of a podcast, just so they could paint me as this bad person. Right. So it's like, they will do it. It's extra. That's whack as hell to me. You know what I mean? But it goes to show like people will go through great lengths. But I really encourage people that I guess the people that they're signaling for that are consuming this to think above and beyond that surface level. Like, consider the context of something. Go look it up for yourself. But consider the context of something, and then take into consideration how you are. You know what I mean? And what the things you may be saying. You joke. I know me and my bros. Okay. Golly, you know what I mean? And some of the jokes that we say, and but that's a lot of problems that I have with society and stuff like that. I've talked about this before, and I just think it's so weird to me that people will engage in something that they'll knowingly engage in the same practice, but the minute somebody else engages in the practice and it becomes public, they are like, "Oh, wait a minute,
I can't be a part of that. I would never, sir." And then they put their top hat on. Yeah,
right. Like that's like, I'm like, wait a minute, man, come on. It's like the Eminem. What did he say? I was at a real Slim Shady when he was like, because I'm only giving you things you joke about with your friends inside your living room. The only difference is I got the balls to say it in front of y'all. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of how I look at it. But it's a weird situation, man. And people just need to take into consideration the people that are the consumers, the people that these people are signaling for. Yep. You got to take a step back. You got to look at the context of what something is being said. And just like I said, you do not have to. You're not, by recognizing maybe the context of something, does not mean that you support pedophilia. Does not mean you support rape or something like that. Like, you can oppose those all while recognizing the context of something, maybe somebody's growth, etc.
Right, exactly. And we're talking about the context, especially when it comes to these jokes. The reason why these jokes are made is because people already acknowledge that these are horrible acts. These are hideous things. No one's condoning rape. No one's trying to homogenize rape. It's because of the power of that word and the concept of that it becomes that it is the joke. And that's where these things are used in the context of this shocking thing that no one would ever put these two things together kind of stuff.
Yep, 100%.
So let me take a quick break, and then I want to talk more about taking things out of context, which I think is a perfect segue into Sacha Baron Cohen's new show. So listen to this ad, and I'll be right back. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. Those epic words from Archilochus can sum up your ability to succeed or fail in business. I want to recommend Conversation Mat Time to our listeners as a way to hone your one-on-one conversation skills in a role-playing session that can help take you to the next level. During 25-minute sessions, you'll work through the best way to approach that raise, that interview, or that relationship with a practiced professional that will provide the confidence and experience you need to get paid what you're worth or take that interpersonal risk you've never been able to conquer. Just like in jiu-jitsu, the difference between a novice and a black belt is mat time. Train to win. Visit conversationmattime.com and take advantage of a free 15-minute consultation just for listeners of this show. All right, welcome back to Electric Libertyland, episode number 82. I am here again with Eric July, the lead singer of Backwordz, one of the most fantastic libertarian bands I think you could listen to. Make sure to check out their album Veracity. That's on iTunes. You can grab that wherever your phone goes, pretty much. It's available to all people, all masses.
It's everywhere.
So Eric and I were talking about taking things out of context, talking about this cultural battleground, or I'd say cultural minefield is probably a better way to put it now. And I wanted to talk about Sacha Baron Cohen's new show, Who is America is the name of it, which you've seen a couple clips come out. And for me, I even though Sacha Baron Cohen is most definitely on the left heavily, I do appreciate his humor. Like, I find it, some of his gotcha things are pretty funny. I will say, I think posing as an injured veteran crossed a line for me where I think it's in poor taste. But at the same time, I'm not going to call for him to be fired or the show to be canceled over it. But he's going around, he's talking to a lot of these lawmakers. And the one I wanted to talk about most recently that's getting a lot of coverage is Georgia's, it's Jason Spencer, a Republican who represents the community of Woodbine in Southeast Georgia, appeared on a segment wherein Baron Cohen was playing this character named Colonel Oran Morad. He's like a head of a Israeli anti-terrorism force. And he was able to convince the guy not only to yell the N-word, but also saying that yelling the N-word would protect him against terrorists, and then also convinced him to take his pants off and charge at the camera with his ass out. And again, in the context of scaring away terrorists. So knowing you have not seen the video, knowing what you know from what I just told you, where do you fall on this? Is this should we consider this taking things out of context, that they're doing it for the good of humanity, or is this good to expose these idiots for the idiots they are?
Oh man, I mean, I guess you can take it maybe both ways. I guess it's good to to know the idiots, and they exist, and then the great lengths that they would do. It's funny, man, with Sacha, because I've been there with, I don't know if you remember, back years ago when he was Bruno.
Oh yeah.
And he did that segment with Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Where he was like trying to hit on him.
Yeah. And Ron Paul just walked out, right? I didn't.
Yeah, but it's funny. People were mad because he said like Ron Paul, he said something like this guy's queer as the blazes or something that. Right. And people were so mad. People were mad at some people were mad that he was having that approach. They were more mad about that than obviously this weird guy coming on to Ron Paul. Right. In the way that they were more, because again, Ron obviously didn't know what the hell was going on. You know what I mean? So it was funny, but yeah, it's just kind of weird to see.
That also ties to what we were talking about earlier. Like this, right. Times change. Ron Paul's at that time was probably 70. I mean, he's got to be like 85 now.
Yeah.
So you got this old dude who's just shocked. He's going, Jesus, that guy's queer as hell. He's surprised. It's not. What do you expect? It's like, this is what I love. People pretend like they wouldn't do it. Like, if somebody out of the blue, I'll tell you a story. I don't think anybody, I don't think I've ever told this story on the podcast before. So I went to Penn State for college, right? And we were out drinking one night, and there was a bar called the Dark Horse Tavern, which I think just closed, but there was an alleyway behind the bar, and it was great for peeing or puking, whatever you had to do. So I drank too much, and I know you don't partake, so this is not going to be as great a story for you, but I go out there, I'm trying to throw up to clear myself out of whatever I drank. And this little dude comes up. Little guy, looked like, little Webster-sized guy with an afro, right? Little black dude comes up to me. And he's like, hey, man, can I bum a cigarette? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I'm smoking a cigarette with them, talking. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to go throw up in this alleyway. So he's like, all right, peace out. So I walk down the alleyway. I put my hands on the wall. And then I get tapped on the shoulder right as I'm getting ready to puke. And he's like, hey, man, can I bum another cigarette? Sorry to bother you. I'm like, all right, Webster, here you go. Get out of here. So I give him another cigarette, put my hands up on the wall to puke again, and then I feel a hand grab me right on the dick. And I hear, hey, man, you want your dick sucked? And I was like, no, I don't want my dick sucked. And he was like, cool as you could be, by the way. Well, Gil Webster holds up his sister. He's like, all right, man, peace. And just walks out of the alleyway. That was it. So let me tell you.
But like,
I did not know what to do. My friends were like, did you punch him? I was like, no, man. I was shocked as shit. I didn't know what to do.
Man.
What do you do?
And it's funny, right? When stuff like that, like, it's just like you just said. No. It's easy for us, definitely on the outside looking in, not in the heat of the moment or anything like that, to sit up here and be like, oh, man, I would never. Just like, man, I don't know about that. Like, I looking at going back to Ron, I mean, I probably would have dropped some words that would have most definitely got me in trouble, so to speak, saying queer as the blazes. I could have thought of a lot of worse things.
Right, that's a pretty tame thing to say, really, right?
Yeah. Like, I could have thought of a lot worse things to say, and it probably would have said if I had, been in that situation. Yeah. But so, we can say all day long, and it's real easy for us to say that. But when something like that, it's shocking. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's easy. We like to think how we will react, but when you're blindsided, and it's a little different, man. And I've been there, you know what I mean? I've been there, and I've done some things that I'm like, man, looking at it in retrospect, it's like, yeah, probably shouldn't have did that, or I could have
handled that a little better.
Yeah, I could have handled that a little better, and I learned from it. That way now, maybe next time if I'm in a situation as such, I'll kind of make my adjustments from there. But when something's like that happens and you're not expecting it, man, it could go either way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, again, what you were talking about earlier. There's nowhere people are allowing anywhere for growth. You know, it's like you have something happen, you learn from it, you move on. And, you know, this, not to say the Sacha Baron Cohen stuff. I mean, I'm sure they will be learning experiences for these most recent people that went through it. This guy who's bared his ass and ran at the camera. And the context of him saying the N-word, by the way, I guess Baron Cohen said that word is so taboo that is what will scare the terrorists away. So I don't know how dumb you have to believe believe this in the first place, but that was the context for getting to do it. But
yeah.
You know, I mean, shit, I agree with you. I think it's good for exposing people for what they are. And all of these politicians, almost all of them are the dumbest fucking people.
Oh, I mean, man, that's an understatement.
Damn. It's unbelievable. Like, I don't know how your local politicians are in Dallas, but we got just the gaggle.
We got like Eddie B. Johnson and all those guys. We got some idiots out here, man. So trust me. Yeah.
Do you ever tussle with any of them locally on Twitter? I mean,
no,
I'll tweet at some of them. I rate emails, but I never hear back.
No, I don't. I have, I get blocked and stuff like that, and they don't like hearing from guys like me. But yeah, man, I mean, these politicians. I mean, a lot of these guys are stupid, and I mean, it's not just them. It's a lot of their I guess their little talking heads that are on their side. I've learned this from the music industry, for example, people that I've greatly respected, or not even greatly respected. Not even that. I think that's the wrong way of putting it. The more correct way of putting it is people that I assumed thought they, had a grasp of what they were talking about or the positions that they were taking. And then I get here, you know what I mean? And I talk to some of these guys and I'm like, wait, y'all really don't understand it. It's fun. I did a big shout out to Rockfeed, which is a huge deal, and that's some what we were talking about. I was on their little podcast over there at YouTube, and I was talking about some of that. He was like, man, a lot of these people take these generic positions on Twitter and stuff like that, but I was one of the few that would get out there and defend my position, and at least was educated enough to not make myself look like an idiot in the process. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I invite any sort of like you can argue with me or anything like that. We were talking about Corey from Slipknot and how he's signaling a lot these days and stuff like that, and how he loves people like Sean King and stuff like that. It's like, but it's not really any sort of honest dialogue taken between. I was like, yeah, you can get me and Corey on the podcast if you want. Anybody from that side that's in metal, punk, hardcore, and stuff like that. These idiots that I'm not trying to call Corey an idiot. I'm saying that a lot of these people don't really understand what it is that they believe. They're taking positions and they're not really educated on them. It wouldn't even be in a position or not. They just really couldn't defend it, in the event that there was some. But, when you're sitting in a bubble or in an echo chamber all day long, of people that agree with you all the time, everybody looks like the smartest person there.
Man, well, tell me a little bit about, so dealing with your music career, is that something, did you have pushback? I mean, I don't know the evolution of your personal style, if you were always into metal, if you were into different music types and then settled on metal. And I'm curious to see if metal is more, do you think metal is more open to libertarian ideas than, say, like fucking indie rock? Because I would say I would go on a limb and say it probably is.
I would say out of the rock base genres, yeah. I mean, I'm a pretty multifaceted because I do a lot of different. I rap too, so I've been in that side of things as well. And me being in a more of a a subgenre, like more so like the metalcore, post-hardcore scene is the scene that Backwordz is most prominent in terms of, because that's all we tour with for the most part, is a bunch of metalcore bands and post-hardcore bands and hardcore bands and stuff like that. So I would say metal out of those is most accepting. However, I would say it's still pretty bad. It's still pretty leftist, at least in my experience. Yeah. You get sectors that aren't. You get little sectors there, but definitely in R more so like the metal core, like that sort of, and the hardcore sub-genre, just like punk. It's just a bunch of leftists, man. And we got pitched back. But look, I've had people. I read articles. I'm one of those guys that, a lot of people don't like to do that. They don't like to read criticisms of themselves. I get a kick out of that, me personally. So I go look up an article a hit piece or something like that, or some idiot on YouTube.
Glutton for punishment. Eric July's probably also into a lot of sadomasochism, sexually in the bedroom. anything that involves a lot of beating up on himself. He's got a dominatrix in the closet. I think I saw it tuck away right before we started the pod.
Right. But it's like, man, I'm sitting here, I watch these guys on YouTube and stuff talk about me, and they act like I'm just the biggest threat there is. I've had people literally say that.
Say, man.
Yeah, like they call me a literal threat. And I'm just like, well, I'm an advocate of non-aggression. Yeah. Of all the people that you find the most threatening, you find me, my ideology threatening. But it just goes to show this political monopoly that's really in music and in definitely in our subgenres. And I get that pushback, but I welcome it because, like I said, you can't be timid. You can't be really apologetic with it. It's like, I'm like, whatever with it. You know what I mean? And it sucks. But I look at myself as I look at it in a positive light because I've had so many people that have come out. You've seen so many folks that are in our genres that are libertarians that are now like, all right, I'll go out on it too. For the most part, it was just me and Phil Labonte, from All That Remains. You know what I mean? And even him, him and I, we chat all the time too.
You know what I mean? Big Boy. You think Big Boy's libertarian? I think he was a Bernie supporter last election, but
I know Killer Mike most definitely was a huge Bernie supporters. But some of these guys are at least receptive, but they only get it like halfway. It's cool. It's like this sort of my homie and Fifth Ward King. Big shout out to them. They're on the road right now. And the front man Ryan, I actually went to school with him. He's a libertarian. And, he talks about it's like so a lot of these guys are sort of these like teenage sort of, rebel sort of opposition to authority.
They'll gravitate towards whatever the revolt du jour kind of.
Yeah, but they don't really understand it. And it's like, all right, man, it's more so it's like, all right, well, I'm against. And that's what we've seen with a lot of punk guys is, I'm against the establishment when the Republicans are in charge.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what happens. I mean, it happens with a lot of bands we love. System of a Down, it's the same way. All those guys are commies. More so rage. You know what I mean? Against the machine. But definitely, you see those guys performing for like Fight for 15, those guys in Rage and stuff like that. So ultimately, these guys, when it's all said and done, it's more so, I'll oppose it to a certain degree. Yeah. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I'll support some statism if I got to.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Just speaking of this, I don't know if you saw this or not, but James Corbyn, the guy over in England, who's big socialist commie. So he held a big communist/socialist rally, like a big music rally, and he was supposed to have all these big bands play, and then they all canceled on him. And they ended up with like jack shit, no crowd, hardly any bands. They couldn't sell the tickets. The people bought tickets and they were giving tickets away. It's awesome.
Oh man,
wonderful to see the free market answer, like destroy communism. That's free market in real time.
That's the perfect working example, right? I mean, we need more of that, man. But I mean, the way I look at me just being outspoken, you know what I mean. I'm still young, I'm only 28 years old. So I got some time. But definitely for musicians that follow, I just hope, and I've seen it in action, but I just hope that there's more people that are becoming more outspoken because, we've gone on a road with some pretty big bands and you get some of the drummers or something like that. Yeah, man, I agree with a lot of what you guys say. I can't say it because of this and that, this and that. But I just know I'm listening type stuff. My goal is to at least bring these folks sort of out of the closet. And because I think that's where we talked about it earlier in the show is about culture, right? Mm-hmm. And what better way to be an influence, to be a cultural representation, people that jam your music and they know where it is that you stand. You know what I mean? That to me is that's where the war is gonna be fought. That's how the left is winning right now because they have all of these. We just said, all these musicians and stuff like that. Also, TV, all of that. So no matter how much you sort of try to, if you got kids or anything like that, you might try to, put them on game and stuff like that. But, it's tough when, the people that they listen to, they can't. And I talked about this in the speech, how, like that 15-year-old teenager who doesn't know their local senator or anything like that, but she can recite a Beyonce lyric like easy, back to front.
Well, how about Cardi B came out as like a big libertarian, right?
Yeah. I saw libertarians sort of try to.
we were trying to get her on board fast. We're like, let's go. We'll take her.
Yeah. That goes to show though how necessary that is, and how definitely libertarians are itching to have that sort of representation that they're willing to try to cling on to somebody else. Because again, it's just necessary. I mean, you need those sorts of figures in that realm, because we got all the intellectuals. Yeah. We got the Tom Woods of the world that is going to not ever lose an argument against anybody. Like you get me Bob Murphy and Tom Woods against anybody. I like my chances against any guy calling himself an intellectual that's coming from the other side. I like my chances with those guys, and they're necessary, But I think we also need guys like myself that can funnel sort of some of the things that they talk about for these other folks to understand, and also send them their way. Once I won them over, I can send them to the Tom Woods of the world. I can send them to the Murphys, the Bob Murphys of the worlds, the Friedmans, the Souls, the Walter Williams, the Rothbards. So it's all about being some sort of cultural representation, and I think that we're starting to see that. We've seen I've got a lot of folks that are in this industry that follow me in our subculture that I notice are starting to say a little more on Twitter and be a little more outspoken. And I'm not saying that I'm just the sole blame for them to do that or anything like that. Like it's all me. No, I'm just saying that, I just hope that people continue to do that. And if I can kick down a couple of doors and maybe even get shot up in the process, at least there'll be people coming in sort of behind me that are more outspoken. Man,
like you said, you're young, you're 28, Backwordz is done. Like, your last album was awesome, sold well. You guys are touring, you're on the rise. So, what I'd love to see, in truth, would be something where, I'd love to see you guys just get so big where you're able to do something along the lines of like, I don't know if you've heard of this company called the Taliesin Nexus. It's a fucked up name. I told them they need to rebrand it, because who the fuck's going to remember that ridiculous name? Like, basically, it's like a bunch of filmmakers, like, God, I'm blanking on what they made now, the Black Book and a bunch of other stuff. So like people that are successful in the industry that are libertarian, and they're trying to bring more libertarians in that are like writers and filmmakers. And like one of our listeners and supporters, Adam Choit, he's working on right now doing like a short film, like 15-minute films. I would just love it if you became that for the music industry. If you got big enough and had the time to do it, where you had your own label and you're like, fuck man, I can take on a few of these bands and help groom them in the industry and get them out there and help that culture grow. Just be awesome. I would love, and I would prefer that if Backwordz gets as big, and even if it, it is, like you just mentioned, we just had our first album and did very well. Yeah. And also me as a political commentator, I've been growing and growing and growing. So, if I get that sort of following, I would love to, start, possible, some sort of label or something like that, and really just kind of sort of facilitate and more so utilize just my following to sort of bring put a spotlight on a lot of these bands that have these, like not just libertarian leanings, but guys that are just at least unapologetic and they'll put it out there because it's necessary. We need that stuff in art, man. Yeah. It's just so necessary. I can't say that enough, that how much we really need this in art, because I think that's where the war is going to be won. So most definitely, I'd love to do something like that. I'd love to get in a position where I'm able to do that and help some of these guys out and that aren't as big and most definitely probably will never get as big unless somebody like myself helps them out, because they're going to be sort of ostracized by the industry. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, especially if they are vocal in their opinions on Twitter, or if they're writing, or if they're, shit, man, they're going to hit those doors. So you need to be, if you're going to kick them down, man, God bless you.
Man, most definitely. That's what I'm trying to do, man. So that's a wonderful idea, and I'd love to be a part of something like that.
All right. Well, I'd say that's probably good. That's a good bow on the episode, right?
It was a good song. Good song.
So tell everybody where they can find it, because there's only one way that we're going to get Backwordz where they need to be as the cultural icons and / label makers / future makers that we all know they should be. So tell everybody where they can get your album, follow you. You said you're not touring anymore now, but give them all the deets.
Right. Yeah. So, like you mentioned earlier, Backwordz, Backwordz. You can type that in anywhere, Google, Bing, whatever. You'll see all kinds of. We got a lot of music videos on YouTube. We're on iTunes. Every major digital medium you can think of, from Google, Amazon, iTunes, Spotify. We're on all of that. You can also on some of those, like Amazon, get some physical copies. You can go to our website, get some more information on that, which is going to actually relaunch Backwordz. That's Backwordz music.com, and which we're also we have a staff of writers, and we're going to be putting out some on our website. Though you can get some music and stuff like that, you're also going to be able to get some like libertarian material.
Nice, that's awesome.
On our website and stuff like that. So you can most definitely check that out. Now, from an individual standpoint, you want to see me argue with blue checkmark leftists on Twitter, Eric D. July. You can find me there, and Young Ripper 59 is YUNGRIPPA, the number 5 and the number 9. As far as being on Twitch and my YouTube channel. So if you want video content, but the biggest thing as far as seeing my video content, me being the co-founder as well as the head of multimedia for beinglibertarian.com, we're all over there. So you see my video. I'm dropping videos like 3 times a week over there. Just dropped one not too long ago. So you'll see so many videos over there. So I'm not a hard person to find. Our band's not a hard person to find. We appreciate the support. Our backbone at the end of the day is the libertarian community, though we don't tour with libertarians or anything like that. Our backbone of that support has most definitely been the libertarian community. We acknowledge that, and we support. We love that support. And we appreciate it. And yeah, just get out there. You can get as much material as you can, man. And just come holler at me over at Twitter arguing with those check marks.
There you go, guys. And I will put all of the links to Eric's social media platforms, websites, etc. on lionsofliberty.com/ELL82. So again, Eric, awesome having you on, man. I look forward to having you on many times in the future, and hopefully you won't have to do as much heavy lifting as you did today, and I won't sound like Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime.
Yeah, man.
Most definitely. I loved it, man. Appreciate you having me on. We'll do it again.
All right. Sounds good. Take it easy. All right. So that will do it for this edition of Electric Liberty Land, the Optimus McWilliams edition, guys. So thank you so much for listening. Yeah, thanks to Eric July. I want to remind you all to please support the show. Please share the show, guys. Please, please, please tell a friend. Post about it on Reddit. Do whatever you can to help spread the ideas of liberty, help this show grow. We really appreciate everything you do for us and appreciate you listening. So from me, Brian McWilliams, from Mark and Odie, my compatriots here at the Lions of Liberty, and from Electric Liberty Land, I want to remind you to always stay plugged in to liberty.